speaking about sponsors of the Kiev regime. As we all know, Canada positions itself as a highly peaceful country. It takes pride in its participation in peacekeeping operations, expresses concern over the dangers posed by anti-personnel mines, and calls for strict compliance with the UN Charter and international humanitarian law, including in Ukraine. In general, it actively champions universal prosperity, democracy, and world peace. And now, just the other day, we learned that this supposedly peace-loving country became party. You think out to what? Not the humanitarian project to help the victims of the Starobelsk attack carried out by the Kiev regime. They arranged to establish a production facility for strike and reconnaissance unmanned aerial vehicles on its territory. These very aerial vehicles they used to kill children, civilians, maternity homes, hospitals. The very aerial vehicles they use to strike paramedics, firefighters, rescue services. On May 25th, with the support of the Canadian Department of National Defense, a joint venture was established within private company Sentinel from the Canadian province of Ontario and the Kiev-based company Aerologics. They signed an agreement on intellectual property and licensing, which includes knowledge and experience sharing. The Canadians provide the know-how in composite materials and manufacturing methods, while neo-Nazis provide knowledge of actual combat conditions. They will share how they carry out terrorist attacks. And these so-called knowledge how to kill civilians by drones, how to strike civilian infrastructure, they are in abundance. However, for some reason, Ottawa fails to recall the principles of international humanitarian law in this context. As we can see, in the field of development and manufacturing these relatively inexpensive but highly effective 21st century instruments of murder, the state, which fears, in the words of its Prime Minister, being on the menu, is clearly unwilling to fall behind. As a result of the deal, the Canadians acquire a profitable military production facility in their own soil, while the Ukrainians hide their much-needed strategic reserve of military resources from Russian strikes on another continent, in a third country that supposedly is not a party to the conflict. How come? How come? We see it all, we know it all, we make the corresponding conclusions. The new joint venture plans to produce several thousand UAVs per year. The Canadians intend to begin rolling out the products, and I must emphasize these are deadly, multi-purpose, low-flying, fixed-wing drones with a range of up to 500 kilometers before the end of this year. You know, this refers to the New Year Act of peace-loving. The Canadian Military Department will purchase the finished items from Sentinel and transfer them to the Ukrainian Armed Forces free of charge. All products will be supplied to Ukraine, eventually for use against the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But to put it in plain terms, to kill Russians. Do you remember how George Bush Jr. said that the goal of the Kiev regime is to kill as many Russians as possible? Thus, as we can see, Canada has moved to a qualitatively new level of involvement in the Ukrainian crisis. All masks have been discarded, and the true-based nature of what is by no means a peace-loving state, but rather a warmonger, seeking to further fuel the Russian-Ukrainian conflict by all possible means, has been laid bare. We reserve the right to an adequate response, and we will factor these new circumstances into our military political planning, and we will for sure publish the correspondent addresses of these production facilities on the territory of Canada.
Are We're one of the largest, arguably the largest per capita contributor to Ukraine across humanitarian and defense. We've trained 50,000 Ukrainian troops, and we lead the brigade in the NATO brigade in Latvia. So as I've said, I think I said in my remarks, it's on the front line. We're partnering with Ukrainian defense contractors. We're financing them to produce drones and other things for Ukraine's defense. But then we're building capacity in Canada and Denmark and other places so that we can build that out for the future for